And again, it goes back into what Fisher DeBerry talks about. A good player, a good coach tells a player what he can do, not what he can't. Okay, and what coach means by that is, I'm going to coach you up, and I'm going to say, boy, that's really, really good, but I'm going to be very aware of the words I use. And instead of using a word like but, I'm going to use a word like now. For instance, boy, Colt, that was a super, super job. You really did a great job of getting between your man and the basket. Now you're ready to do this. As opposed to, Colt, that was a great job getting between your man and the basket, but. Now, whatever I just said before the but, what happens to that? It's gone. They didn't even hear it. Okay, but if you use the word now instead of but, now you've empowered them to go on to the next level of mastery or the next level of development. Well, that's what we want not only in our Christian lives, all right, but we want that with our players too. And now when you teach them like that, they're going to teach like that. Now, speaking greatness is this. Not only am I going to give them specific feedback, but I'm also going to give them a vision for what they're going to be like in the future. That's what speaking greatness is. And that little quote down here I've got is, son, that is the best decision I've ever seen a player make since I've been here. You have come a long way, and you're going to be a great player here. Well, not only did I tell them what they did well, but I gave them a vision for the future. That's what we mean by speaking greatness into people. Now, lastly, in this section, we go to point number 2, and that's the power of the put-up game. And now I need to tell you that the put-up game has changed my life, it's changed my family's life, and it's changed the way I coach. The put-up game simply comes from Frosty Westering out of Pacific Lutheran, and the put-up game is this. A put-up is the opposite of a put-down. And again, we're speaking greatness during the put-up game. Now, here's what we do. We create a climate and a culture by using the put-up game on a daily basis. With your teams, with your family at home, you can do this. So here's how I describe the put-up game to the group when I teach it, and you now can teach it too. Take your team and tell them, here's what we're going to do. For the next 5 minutes, we're going to scrimmage each other. And in that 5 minutes, I want you to find 2 things for the opponent against you that you thought they did well, and you're going to tell us after we come together after this 5-minute segment. And then you go off and you scrimmage, you do it for 5 minutes, and then you bring them back. And you go, okay, give me some put-ups. And the first thing the kids are going to do is go, well, I really, really like Scotty's hat. And they don't really understand what you're really wanting. Just stay steadfast and be patient and say, okay, hey, what I want is specific, guys. I don't want anything superficial. Tell me something that person did that you really admire and you thought was good. Sooner or later, somebody's going to come around, and if a player doesn't do it, another coach can, and you can coach them up beforehand, and you say, you know what, I've been coming to, and then one of the kids will say, I've been coming to practice every day. And you know what? Lee never gets to play on Friday nights, but every time he comes to practice, he works me as hard as I possibly can. He makes me better. Lee, thanks for all you do. And then when that kid says that, you go, yeah, that's it. Give me another one. And then you start feeding off each other. And now guess what? You do this in the middle of practice. You do this in the middle of scrimmages. And by the way, this breeds back into our opponent. And as a biblical coach, I don't hate my opponent. Okay, it's not war, and we're not trying to kill each other. All right, contrary to the world's culture. What we want is we love our opponent. Why do we love our opponent? Because they bring out the best in us. Now, that's not a cliche. If my team, and I'm coaching the New York Knicks, and Michael Jordan, the Chicago Bulls, are on the other side of the court, guess what level of play we need to be playing at if we hope to compete and beat the Bulls? We're going to have to raise our level. Now, who made us do that? Our opponent did, because they're so good. Now, here's the deal, though. We compete for who? Our opponent or for God? Well, we compete for God. So our level of excellence is not determined by our opponent. We want to be excellent for God. But the neat thing is, when we play really, really good teams, it's an opportunity to take our excellence level for God to another level. And that's why we love our opponent. And we want to bless our opponent. Do we want to beat our opponent? We've got another saying that we say, you know what? The other team's going to try to beat us. We just want to be us. And be us means we are servant leaders. We compete like nobody's business, and we're going to get after it, and we're going to compete to God's glory, and we will never, ever, ever, ever quit. And we're going to have a great attitude regardless of what that scoreboard says, and we're going to play excellent. That's what we're looking for. Well, let's get back, though. Let's get back to this taming the tongue thing. And as we talk about the put-up game, guess what happens when you start doing this every day in practice, and then you start doing it even in games? And after the game, you get everybody together and you're in the locker room or you're out on the field. And you start, and you might have got beat 50-0 or 72-30, I don't know, or 12-0 in baseball. And you go out there, or hockey, and it's 7-0. You go out there and you go, listen, before I do my speech, I want to hear the put-ups right now. What'd you see? I want some one-liners. And guess what? The kids are already conditioned to know how to do this. And they start looking for what? The silver lining in the dark cloud. And you're teaching them to not only be optimistic, but you're teaching them to look for the good in things. Even in bad, you're looking for the good. That's a biblical principle. Where's God at work? So now you take it to that level, and now all of a sudden, guess who's standing around those huddles while you're doing the put-up games sometimes after games? Parents, media, absolutely. School officials. And you start to create a climate where there's a kind of a glow, there's kind of this positive environment, and it's not just behavioral change, but it's a really unique, from the heart felt, specific, we did this well, we did that well. Now guess what? Parents get in the cars, they're not allowed to pick on all the negative stuff. They need to be doing the put-up game too. Very powerful for youth sports culture also. Anyway, I'm talking too much. Need to finish this up. I need you to understand a couple of things here as we move to page 22. I think you got an understanding of the put-up game. By the way, some coaches won't want to try the put-up game. Tell them, yeah, it'll seem hokey at first, but it'll change the culture of your team and the climate. Go for it. The whole difference about when someone spoke something negative into you and someone spoke something positive into you. I've told a story about myself, about how a high school coach, all I cared about was being the starting quarterback that year. And we were in a drill, and as I came around the drill, he looked at me and said, hey, Olson, you need to think about being all conference this year. It was amazing how in 50 yards my whole mental outlook changed. And all of a sudden I went from just wanting to start and play to all of a sudden, well, the heck with that, I could be that and above that. And I think that's the power that a coach has in influence, and that we can bless kids with our tongue and do it honestly, though, and sincerely. We're not just, blowing smoke just to make them feel good. That'll hurt you in the long run. You need to really be honest. Now, the last thing here that we're going to talk about in this lesson is the fact that we're in a battle. And we've got Ephesians 6, and you're going to read that aloud with your coaches. But one of the things we talk about, and I hope you will too, right here, that we emphasize is we live in two worlds. There are two realms that we live in as Christians, and this is not to get weird or wacky or anything like that. Understand that there's a world we live in that we can touch, see, taste, hear, and visualize and everything else. That's the world we're in right now, and you can hear me and you can see me. Okay, that's a very tangible world, right? It's a very touchy world. What you see is what you get. But now there's another world that the Bible talks about. And in the book of Kings, there's a story about Elijah. And Elijah has been this prophet again who he's been thwarting all this other king's battles. He's been basically foretelling the future because of what the Lord has been telling him, and he continues to thwart the king's efforts to dethrone this area and to destroy this area, and this king is beginning to get angry. So he just says, I tell you what, we want you to bring all the chariots and all our weaponry and all our soldiers. We're going to go destroy Elijah right now. Well, Elijah's standing up on top of this hill, and all of a sudden his servant comes running up to him and he says, oh my goodness, I'm scared. Look at how much they have outnumbered us. It's unbelievable. We're in huge trouble, Elijah. What do we do? And Elijah says, well, we're not outnumbered. We are outnumbering them. And the servant looks around and he doesn't see anything. He doesn't see anything at all. And Elijah notices that his servant doesn't see it. And he asks and he prays to God, Father God, open my servant's eyes. And with that, the servant's eyes are open and he turns, and there are hundreds of thousands of chariots of angels getting ready to go to war for them. Now that's two worlds. And it's important that the coaches know they're in two worlds. And Paul in Ephesians talks about it too. And as we talked about, they need to understand, they need to get help. They need to do it in the spiritual realm. They need to be praying. That's where the power comes from.